Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and in this video we're going to make this little pendant. It reminds me of a shell, and it uses a bead, a round bead. It's kind of like trapped in a little cage is another thing that it looks like. However, one thing that I want to mention real quick is I know that a lot of times I recommend when people are starting out with wire wrapping, they start with beads because beads are a lot easier, and that is true, but this particular tutorial, this particular design is actually kind of tricky. So if you are brand new to wire wrapping, you're just starting out, I probably wouldn't start with this particular design just because it'll probably be a little frustrating. But if you've done it for a little bit, you're feeling a little bit more comfortable, you've made, a few pieces, and yeah, you can definitely go ahead and dive into this one. It's not like super difficult or anything, it's just not a great one for a beginner or for somebody trying wire wrapping for the first time. But anyways, so if you want to see how I made this little shell pendant, just keep watching. So the wire that I'm going to be using for my base wire is some 20 gauge dead soft copper round wire, and this is from riogrande.com, and I just have one piece of it that is about 13 inches, 13 and a half, let's say. And my bead is about 12 millimeters. It's kind of a larger bead. Looks like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is just slide my bead onto my wire and just put it down here so it's kind of the middle on the bottom like this. And then I'm going to bend the wires this way. So it looks like that, and then I'm gonna grab my pliers. Let me just zoom in a little bit for this, and what we want to do here is we want to bend these wires kind of roughly where they meet here in the middle. So you can see where they're crossing each other, and you just have to do one wire at a time with your pliers and just bend it like that, and then we'll just do the other one like this. And you want to completely close that up with your pliers like that. And after you do that, they probably won't come together in the middle and touch each other anymore. There's gonna be like a little gap that gets formed, and that's okay. That's totally fine. We're actually gonna have some wire going through that gap there, so that's totally fine. So just kind of press down on them, and then as you're pressing down on them, bend the wires kind of upwards here to the top, and put little bends in them with your fingers to bring them together like that. All right, so there's going to be a back and a front. So this is the front. The front has the wires coming up this way, and then on the back you can see the wire that's going into the bead. So this is the front. So what we want to do now is we want to connect these two wires to form our bail. And I'm actually just going to use some half round wire for that, just some 24 gauge half round wire. But you can use round wire. I would use maybe like a 26 or even a 28 gauge round wire, but instead of just wrapping it around and around, I would do a little weaving pattern with the round wire. so it stays put a little better. And that's why I'm using half round wire. It's just a little bit quicker and easier. And I just thought this is already kind of a complicated pendant for just a little bead pendant. So I thought that I would just use some half round wire to make it, you know, a little bit quicker so this video isn't too crazy long. So just taking the little tail end and I'm wrapping it around to connect. And then I'm just gonna slide that down as far as that will go. So this is my front because that's where the wire is here, not the wire that's going into the bead, but the one that's kind of on top of it, covering that up. So when I hide my little wire end, it's gonna be here in the back. So to do that, I would just trim it off here in the back. And I would just press down on that little wire end. And now we're just gonna continue. So to continue, because this is connected to the spool and it'll twist if you just go around and around, we're just gonna turn the piece with one hand, and with the other hand, this here, I'm just gonna guide that half round wire, and I'm just gonna go up for a little bit so it's tall enough to be my bail. All right, so once it's long enough for however long you want your bail to be, so this is mine here, do not cut this wire. We're gonna keep using it, but we're gonna go ahead and make our bail. So to make our bail, I'm just holding it with my pliers and I'm bending it with my hand into that bail shape, but you can use like a round nose plier or some bail making pliers. So I think that mine is a little bit too long here and I'm gonna have to unravel it just a little bit. So that's fine, because I don't want my bail to be too big. And what we want here is we want it to come together and just kind of like this. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take that wire, the one that I unraveled, and I'm gonna wrap it around just everything. So just like this, around and around, just twice should be enough. And now I'm gonna wrap it around just these two wires to finish it off. I don't want to cut it right now because it might unravel. I want to wrap it around something first and then trim it off. So we are finishing off that wire and we've connected our bail so that the bail itself, you know, can't come apart now. All right, so then when you're done, I just did a few more wraps just around these two wires. I'm gonna lift them up just a tiny bit so I can get in here with my pliers and just tuck away that little wire end. And then once you've done that, we are done with our bail. All right, so now we're just gonna press these two wires down and they're gonna go in between. They're gonna go here in that little gap that was there on the bottom of the bead like this. And then here, when you get to the front, we're just gonna push them, make sure they're kind of centered here, up the front as well. But then we're gonna separate them out and have one go on each side of the bail, like this. All right, and keep bending it to the back, trying to keep them nice and symmetrical. like that. And then here on the back, here they are coming down. We're just gonna bend them back around to this little gap here. And so they're back to being here to the front. So here on the front, we're gonna have them go just kind of next to the first wire we put down, leaving like a little bit of space, kind of cutting that little area in half. Like this little area here, we want them to go and just kind of cut it in half like this, and then curve them to the back again. All right, so now they're on the back. Both of them are here on the back, like this, and then here is our front. All right, so for the next little bit, we're just gonna be using pieces of that half round wire that I used before, or you can use round wire if you're doing this with round wire. Just cut yourself a piece, maybe like 3-4 inches long. And what I'm gonna do with this, I know it's a little tricky, but I want to work it so it's underneath all of these wires here. Actually, maybe it's easier to do here from the bottom. There we go, that's actually turned out to be easier. Because I want to connect all of these wires. So to do that, I needed to work this underneath all of the wires. So now I'm just gonna take it and work it through here, these two middle wires. I'm gonna put it underneath them and have it come here to the other side, trying to keep it kind of in the middle. It's sliding down on me, but I want to keep it in the middle. And then I'm just gonna tighten that up. There we go, and that has connected those wires there. I'm just gonna slide that up a little bit. So now on the other side, we just have to pull these wires together, but it's kind of tricky to get it through anywhere in here. So you might have to just go to the bottom again. Sorry, I blocked that with my hand. Here on the bottom, and you might have to just work the wire through here, and it's gonna kind of wrap the wire around everything, and that's okay that it's around everything. I'm just gonna slide this up a little bit. It just keeps falling down, and I wanna keep it towards the middle of my stone. And then I'm just gonna tighten that up, and now all of our wires have been tightened together. And what we need to do is finish off those wires, but before we finish them and trim them, we're gonna wrap them around these little ends here. So just take it, you can use your hands or your pliers, whatever is easier, and just make a bunch of wraps because we want it to hold tightly and not unravel. And on the other side as well. And then once you've done maybe like 5 wraps that way, you can go ahead and you can trim the wires so that the little ends of them, when we press them down, they end up underneath, kind of like on the bottom part, and they'll be hidden away. So now I'm just gonna press down on those little wire ends here, kind of tuck them underneath. Where's this other one? There it is. And I'm gonna trim the wires themselves, not right up against the wrap, but I'm gonna leave a little end so that I can grab that little end and make a swirl. So like this and this. So now we're just gonna grab some round nose pliers and we're gonna make a little swirl here, a little loop like this, so that we can kind of finish off the wire and the end isn't, you know, sticking up. Like that. Make sure the little loops are kind of pressed down against your stone. So this is the back of our piece and it's now completed. And this is the front. So I'm gonna do one more extra step. It makes it look a little better from the front. And it's gonna involve another little piece of the half round wire to hold these outer wires together, because once you press them a little closer together, it kind of starts to look more like a shell from the front. So to bring these two kind of outer wires closer together, what you have to do is connect them with the half round wire. So usually they end up just kind of naturally here being raised up, almost like on top of these. So if you work your half round wire through, you'll probably end up putting it underneath the both of them. There we go. Like this. So now my half round wire is going underneath those two wires there. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of the ends and I'm just gonna work it through again so that it makes kind of like a complete little wrap. You'll see in 1 second when I tighten that up. See, it makes like a little complete little wrap. So then when I tighten that up by pulling on these little wire ends, it ends up bringing these two wires completely together, like touching each other. And here from the front, I think it holds the look a little better of a shell, so they're not too separated. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just work that up a little bit, and I'm gonna wrap these little ends. Before we cut them, we have to wrap them around, so wrap them around just the wire itself, not both of them, but just one on each side. So here is one little wrap around that one wire, and I'm just gonna do another little wrap, and probably 3 or 4 wraps is enough. Obviously mine are kind of spaced out here. You'd want them to be nice and tight like this. And then this other one, the same thing. So we are going to trim these wires off. This is just a way of finishing them up before we trim them so they don't unravel. So now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of lift this up. We're gonna trim it like this. And then we're gonna take that little end with our pliers and just kind of point it downwards in there and then press it down. So we're tucking away that wire end, and then same thing here. Gonna lift that wire up, trim it so you have a little wire end sticking out. Now we're gonna take that little wire end, turn it downwards, and then just press that down in there and get rid of the wire ends that way. And now it's completed, and I think it looks like a little shell from the front. So you can play around with it a little bit, like if you want to try and press down on these wires a little more to get them a little closer together. Just play with the little, you know, shape here. I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So that's it. That's my little shell bead pendant, and here is the back of it. And then here is another one that I made right before. This was my practice one. So they actually look really, really similar. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.